What's the best advice you've been given about teaching? In the beginning, I had friends that were teaching when I was beginning. At first, I was the only person teaching English that I knew. And many of I began teaching while I was in university. And many of my classmates used to ask, what do you do during the weekend and stuff? And I would say, I teach. And they'd be like, teach? What do you teach? I'm like, I teach English. And they'd be like, where? In language schools. And they're like, okay. So after some time, some of them started to teach too. And many of them, just like I was doing, we were just doing this to support ourselves during university. Like, get a part-time job, work, get some money and support yourself during school and etc. So we didn't have anyone that was serious about the teaching and sharing tips around. Everybody was just part-timing and getting out of there. But while I was teaching, I fell in love with teaching, and I started looking for people that were doing this and wanted to do it full time. I couldn't find them in my environment, so I turned to YouTube. And in YouTube, this is where I've found amazing teachers. For example, there is one teacher that I generally watch. His name is Teacher Michael. You can check out his YouTube channel. He does classes with kids. He gives tips to teachers who teach kids. And I generally used to hear about an idea. I go to YouTube and type in that idea. For example, TPR, what's that? Total physical response. You teach using your body and actions and everything when teaching kids. And I just used to type in TPR, and I got a trillion videos, and I would watch. And this is where I get advice. I still use YouTube for advice. Right now I have a few teacher friends. Sometimes we speak and we share challenges and good times and everything, but generally I use YouTube. I remember the first time I was teaching teenagers privately, I thought to myself, let me Google, because I Googled for kids, I had to Google for teenagers, like how to teach teenagers, what you should know, 5 things you should know when teaching teenagers and everything. And they gave me tips that really work, because sometimes teenagers, when they come to class, they're very moody. And in the past I used to think, maybe she doesn't want to learn, or maybe he doesn't want to learn, but that's not the case. That's not the case. Sometimes they're just shy. Sometimes they're just shy. Sometimes they just had something bad that happened and they don't know how to deal with it. So I got some tips. So one was Teacher Michael. The other one is, I wrote his name down before, Blaine Ray. This is an amazing teacher. I watched 2.5 hours of class, more than that, like 2.5 hours long videos of him teaching. He uses one of the best methods that I love to use, storytelling. And I saw him use stories to teach students that were in advanced. He was using stories to teach things that are not very easy to teach to students, like vocabulary, like phrasal verbs, collocations, and everything. And I really enjoyed how he was teaching. So generally, these are the people I try to watch them and see how do they carry on the classes, and I get tips from them. I learn something from them. That's another way I get advice. Somebody doesn't sit and tell me. I watch other teachers do it and I learn. I try to get a few things that I love from their classes and add to my classes. And the other way I learn is through reading. I do lots of reading around almost every topic. I don't know, like when I was in university, I never used to read a lot. When I was a kid, I used to read a lot. But when I got into, I think, high school, university, I never used to read a lot. And I somehow forgot the good things about reading, the gold that's inside reading books. But of recent, I reconnected to that reading hobby of mine, and I read about everything. Some of the good books that I've read, that I've learned a few things that I use to teach. One of them is 30 million words. How do kids learn words? I was wondering, like, how? And I started reading. So I learned a few things from that. There is also another book, it's called The Psychology of a Teacher, or Teacher Psychology, something like that. I listened to an audiobook. It's an amazing book. It again talks about adults, kids, teenagers, and so many other things. And not only teaching English, it talks about things like mathematics, biology, and so many other things. So that's another book. And there is also another book that I liked. The book is not about, it's not about teaching or anything. It's about instincts. The name of the book is called Instincts. Instincts. The owner of the book is a pastor, and he talks about if you want to do your job very well, it doesn't have to be about teaching. He tells a story. In the book, this is the story he tells. He was excited to go to Africa, and he thinks, I'm going to go, we are going to see elephants, we are going to see all the other animals. He focused on the elephants. And when they got to Africa, they had a tour guide. So the tour guide kept on showing them other animals and telling them the history and all the knowledge. And this person was very, very knowledgeable. He was the one speaking and everything. And there was another person that was working at this tour. He was just seated, very quiet. He didn't say anything. And so they walked, they showed them different animals, they showed them this animal, this is where it lives, it does this, the babies do this, the adults do, the big animals do this and everything, all that information, all the science behind animals and everything. And it was great. Everybody loved him, and he looked like he was the brains of the tour. And then after they went around, they told them, okay, we're now gonna go back home. They asked, what about the elephants? This is why we came. We want to see the elephants. And they said, oh, right now you cannot see the elephants. We shall come back, I think, in the evening. This is when you can see elephants. And they thought, okay. So they went, and in the evening they came back. And when they came back on the second trip, again, he was telling them information about elephants, the history. He had all the knowledge about elephants. And this other guy was quiet. And sometimes he was just listening and moving on and watching the environment. And when they got to a place where the elephant was, he said, look that side, there is the elephant. And everybody was like, when they looked there, they saw the elephant. So the guy, in short, he was saying, like, there are some people that know everything, know all the information necessary to do a job. But the real person that showed them the elephant was the one who used his instincts. So this guy, he knew how to maybe look at the ground, look at the environment, study the environment, look at the droppings from the animal and understand there has been an elephant and maybe we are going to walk 5 minutes and we shall find it. So it's the same thing with teaching. Like, you really have to, this is what I got from the book, you really have to use your instincts, because you might know all the information that you're going to teach to your student, and you know all the rules, you're very good at that particular subject, but if you don't use your instincts to study the environment, for example, you might have a well-planned class lesson plan, class materials, and everything is perfect, and this is what I noticed sometimes, like when I get to class, I notice like I have a very well lesson plan made, but when you look at your student, it looks like they had a bad day. And if you get into that lesson plan, they will not follow because maybe they're stressed or they're tired or anything. So you change and you do another activity. So here you're using your instincts, you're studying the environment accordingly. And if they come and they're in a good mood, then you continue. Or when you try to explain something and they don't understand, or you give them homework and they didn't do it, like, you have to use instincts. Today, what's the most suitable thing to do? So those are some of the resources that I have gotten tips from so far. I'm still reading. I do a lot of reading because I think books have gold. Books have gold. Books are they're very good. And I just read and read and read and read and read. And the other thing where I get advice from, it's not necessarily getting advice from somebody, but I'm generally looking around me. I will mention more details about this in the next video. Thank you for listening. I hope you had a great time spending these minutes with me. See you. Take care of yourself. Bonus tip. Guys, you can also ask your students. These are the best people to help you grow as a teacher. Ask your students, what am I doing well? What am I not doing well? How can I make your classes better? In the beginning, I was afraid of asking students because we are all afraid of somebody saying we are not doing a great job. But you have to imagine if, for example, the first student you teach gives you some negative and positive feedback, you're going to learn and change something small about your teaching methods or strategies and everything. And then the second one, the third one. So by the time you get to 100 students, you've improved yourself 100% from the first time you taught. So do not be afraid of asking students for feedback and asking them, how am I doing? How can I help you more? What can I do to make your classes a lot more easier? Because you might be thinking this is the best method, but then it's not helping that student. So you should ask your students too for help and to help you grow as a teacher. Thank you. Forgot this, and this is very essential. This is what I generally do. At the end of every student, if a student tells me, yeah, I need to take a break from our classes, even if they really need to take a break, even if this is a way of them thinking these classes are not working for them, I ask them, like, can you give me some feedback on how our classes really helped you? And this really is helping me grow as a teacher. See you. Take care of yourselves.